with Max?
I'm going for Max in Abu Dhabi. He won last year. I think he's going to win this year and take the title.
What a crazy year. You made the Netherlands so proud, and I can't wait to see you take the championship home and to party together after.
I'm cheering for Max, but anyway, I wish the best luck for both of them.
Hey Lewis, it's JR. You know I'm rooting for you, but there's someone else who wants to say something.
Hey Lewis, go for it, buddy.
Lewis, you know what to do. Go out there, drive like the champ you are. Looking forward to number 8.
You can do this, Lewis. The force is with you.
We are with you.
Love you.
You're the best.
Go deeper into the action with the F1 TV Pit Lane channel. Click the camera icon and join our F1 experts. Live from the track.
Just a really tight chicane. Actually, it's a real challenge.
And in the commentary booth.
This is very tight. Oh, and Lewis Hamilton over the curve.
With up to 3 screens, we bring you 3 times the coverage and reveal what's really happening on the track.
Oh, when he loses it.
Sorry, guys.
Unseen onboards, exclusive analysis, and in-depth interviews.
The hard compound was the real surprise of the weekend.
More action.
Oh, and Russell just touches the grass.
More data and more breaking news as it happens.
This rule change has hit us harder than it has Red Bull.
So hit the camera icon in any F1 session and join us live on the F1 TV Pit Lane channel.
Go straight from podium to paddock with the F1 TV post-race show.
Welcome to F1 Live, coming to you live from the paddock.
We're live from the moment the celebrations are over.
They absolutely mugged him off the start.
With all of the buzz behind the scenes.
Sam Collins.
The strategy all went wrong.
You can clearly see the lack of downforce.
And live one-on-one interviews with the drivers and team members.
I gave him room, just enough, I guess.
So head to F1 TV once the post-race show.
It's going to be great to watch.
Love it. Don't want it any other way.
Masterclass and you're leading the World Championship.
Just turned in on me.
Lewis, we never give up. We never give up. This is still on.
Well done, mate. That was epic.
That's what you get when you don't leave the space.
That's the 100.
Class, Max. That was classy.
Tried everything I could, but we were just not quick enough.
I've just hit him, man. My wing's broken. It's not over yet.
So as the sands of time run down to the end of this magnificent Formula One season, we come to chapter 22 and the chance for Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton to be the writer of their own story. Each has one hand on the championship trophy. Both have the opportunity to realise their dreams. We know this is the final chapter, the end of an epic battle that has captured everyone's attention and emotions. What we don't know is how this blockbuster ends. It's winner takes all. Welcome from the Yas Marina circuit. Scores level, 58 laps ahead of us before the checkered flag waves goodbye to this brilliant season. And it's a season finale on a modified circuit. This is the hairpin at turn 5. The chicane before it is long gone. We've got banking now at turn 9, where once upon a time we had opportunities to overtake into a chicane. And we've got a much faster end to this circuit as well. A maximum speed of 200 miles an hour, but you're about 100 on Friday practice. Pirelli have brought with them for this final round the softest compound tyres in their range. It is the C5, the C4 and the C3. The hard tyre, thought to be a very good race tyre. Neither Red Bull pair of Max Verstappen or Sergio Perez has run it so far this weekend. Lewis starts on the medium tyre, Max starts on the softs. Here's the grid then for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Max Verstappen on pole for a second year in a row here. Lewis Hamilton alongside him in 11th front row start in Abu Dhabi. Lando Norris, his best qualifying since pole in Russia, starts third, ahead of Sergio Perez, equaling his best qualifying here in 4th. Carlos Sainz will start 5th, his best ever start here. Valtteri Bottas down in 6th on his final start for Mercedes. It's Charles Leclerc starting 7th for Ferrari, alongside Yuki Tsunoda in 8th, and Esteban Ocon in 9th, alongside Daniel Ricciardo, who sneaked into the top 10. New level. And here are the starting tyres. Let's go from the back upwards. Soft tyres for Mick Schumacher, medium for Raikkonen, all the way to Stroll. Gasly and Alonso starting on the hards. It's soft then for Ricciardo and Ocon, medium Tsunoda, Bottas on the medium, Leclerc on the soft, Sainz, Perez, Norris on the soft, but crucially Hamilton on the medium, Verstappen on the soft as we get underway for the formation lap. Whatever happens, different strategies for the two that can win the title.
Yes, I think Red Bull would give anything to
be able to change those tyres right now, because of course they weren't in play of setting pole position. They were to get you through to the top 10 shootout. Then you're locked into them for the race. We saw Max snatch that front left tyre, going for a second lap, and basically he couldn't use that set anymore. Forced to qualify into the top 10 shootout on the soft compound tyres, and they are exactly the 4 tyres on his car now. It should get him into the first corner first, but then, and he may even let him pull clear a little bit in the beginning, but Lewis's tyres are much more for the long run. But you know, a safety car or anything like that could turn the entire thing on its head, and that of course would play into to Red Bull's hands at that point. So we saw some games being played, didn't we, by Lewis Hamilton and gang. They didn't want to get too early to the grid. They hung Max out front a little bit, didn't they, on one of the 3 other compound tyres as he can. So I don't think we'll see too much of that going on. And Max has stretched the pack a little bit as well, but we saw them pull the cars back so they can spin their wheels away a little bit. They're not allowed to go above 50 miles an hour until they pass pole position, actually. You're not allowed to go faster than the pit lane limiter, but you can spin the wheels a little bit and try and lay a bit of extra rubber down on your grid slot, get a feel.
Settled today, the Constructors' Championship also to be settled today. Mercedes, for a record-breaking 8th consecutive year as Constructors' Champions, needs 17 points no matter what Red Bull score. Max Verstappen needs to beat Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton needs to beat Max Verstappen. Unless Lewis Hamilton finishes 9th and Max 10th with the fastest lap, the championship would still go to that man's son. Racing dad, Jos Verstappen. 15 drivers from Holland have entered the Formula One World Championship. We've never had a Dutch world champion. For the last 13 years, the champion has either been British or it has been German. Kimi Räikkönen, the last non-Brit or German to win the championship, and all eyes now focused on the grid. The talking eventually has to stop. The wheels start to rotate, and then it is game on.
Yeah, they do some burnouts to the grid to get some rare tyre temperature. And obviously they've been working the brakes and moving the car around, anything to generate their heating engineers, basically. There's certain bits need to stay cool and other bits need to be warm enough and in the right temperature range. 19 cars on the grid then. Nikita Mazepin tested positive for COVID-19. So that is why at the back there, Kimi Räikkönen in his final and 349th Grand Prix.
We've been waiting for this all season long. The finale, the title decider, under the lights here in Abu Dhabi. It's lights out, away we go, and Hamilton gets a decent start, and he's already ahead of Max Verstappen. There's a bit of jockeying going on between Tsunoda and Ricciardo. Hamilton leads into the first corner. Norris goes wide. Sergio Perez slips through into 3rd place. There comes Carlos Sainz, but it's Hamilton out in front. The medium tyres working well for him as his teammate Valtteri Bottas challenges the Ferrari. Into the hairpin we go now. Hamilton leads Bottas, leads Perez, then leads Norris, then the 2 Ferraris of Sainz and Leclerc. It is a dream start for Lewis Hamilton.
Yes, the only good news there for Red Bull is at least Perez is up there, but for the 2nd consecutive weekend, the Red
Hamilton almost coming together. Hamilton has to go off the track. The Dutch fans roaring in the background. Lewis Hamilton in the lead, but will he have to give out the place?
Yes, of course he will, but the problem he's got is Perez is right on Verstappen's tail.
Yes, to give that back.
Verstappen wants that place back, and he wants that place back right now.
What Max should do is back up a little bit and make sure Perez is right on his gearbox for when Lewis inevitably has to give that place back. Verstappen had to do that lunge.
So behind them, the lunge was on with Norris and Sainz and Leclerc. Sainz in 4th, Norris 5th, Leclerc in 6th. Out in front, Hamilton still has the lead from Max Verstappen, from Sergio Perez. And at the end of lap 1, Hamilton's advantage over Verstappen is 1.1 seconds.
Push me off track. Yeah, copy. We're happy with the gap that you've reinstated.
Oh, well, so Mercedes then tactic here is, okay, you haven't gained a lasting advantage. So the stewards will be looking at that. You've re-established the gap. Not quite sure I can see that. You re-established the gap that you had before you went off. Well, they were side by side when they went off.
We did wonder whether the stewards would need to get involved this weekend. by courtesy of that moment down at turn 7. Surely they need to get involved to make a decision one way or another, but it's Hamilton out in front. Will he have to give the place back, or will he keep the lead?
I think that's clear cut for me anyway, but we're talking team play here with Red Bull second and third. Valtteri Bottas has now dropped down to 8th place.
He was having an early battle, wasn't he, with Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda's got ahead of him. Bottas not in play to help his teammate, who's going to have to try and win this the hard way. Now, this the run down. Verstappen a long way back, lunges into the apex. They do touch, and Hamilton has to take to the escape road. Did Verstappen lunge correctly and fairly? Will the stewards rule in Verstappen's favour there, or was that an opportunist move that was never, ever going to be on? Will they decide that way?
It was late, but the door was open and Max stayed on the racetrack.
No investigation necessary, say the stewards. Derek Warwick, former Grand Prix racer, Gary Connolly, very experienced steward, Felix Holter completing that particular trio. They've got bags of experience in the steward's room, and they've decided no investigation necessary. Well, it's like Brazil. Turn 4, there was no investigation necessary that day either.
That's the card they played, and so we're back as we were then, 1.4 seconds behind Max Verstappen. Red Bull, I think, will be on the blower to race control to question that one. But that's, with all of the information they've got available to them, what they see, the different camera angles, there we go.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
So, I've just seen it again. Max is ahead at the apex.
Jonathan,
stays on the track.
Jonathan, he's forced him out there. That's why we asked him to give back all of the advantage.
Lewis has left the track. And, you told him to give back all the advantage?
All the advantage was already given back prior to the first lap ending.
I'm not sure we agree, but understood.
No problems.
So in the eyes of the stewards then, Lewis Hamilton slowed down enough to give back some of the extra meters that he gained when he went off the track, and that was fair. There's race director Michael Massey. That was fair in their opinion. 1.5 seconds now the gap.
Well, I call these things as I see them. Doesn't seem to matter whatever you say. One of the teams is unhappy with you, but I don't see that the gap was the same.
Okay, mate, so just get your head down. No investigation on the shortcuts or the advantage that he's gained in terms of gaps, so let's just get on with this and win it on track, mate.
That is incredible. What are they doing there?
Because they were side by side when the incident happened, and even into the braking zone, so I don't think the gap was ever given back, but that's what the stewards have decided. They're the referees, and I think that's wise advice there to young Max Verstappen in terms of, don't get angry, get even, get on, just focus on the race ahead now.
Well, we wondered, didn't we, was it going to be turn 1 where Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton potentially came together? We lasted 6 corners until they came together. Our first controversial moment of this race, and possibly not the last either, as Hamilton takes to the runoff area, stays ahead of Verstappen. The stewards say no investigation, no penalty to be applied. Now we can get back on with the racing.
Yeah, critically, the stewards feel that because Max slid sideways, he pushed Lewis out of play. But look at that, the Red Bull of Verstappen just barely moved initially, did it? It bogged down on him. And there is then Perez taking third place as Lando Norris goes wide, comes back in, doesn't gain any advantage. And you can see Bottas falling behind the Ferrari as well.
Got squeezed a bit, didn't he?
Really, really low revs there for Lewis in the Mercedes, and just took off 1/10 of a second better on the reaction time, just about finds enough grip, and look at that lovely space in front of him. So yeah, I'm going to call it the same way. I think Max has got in there, he's got into the apex, he stayed within the white lines of the racetrack, and look at the gap Lewis has pulled out front there. So I'll stand by that, but that's not what the stewards think.
This is the view from Lewis Hamilton's cockpit as he sees Max Verstappen coming at him at a rate of knots. But it is very much like Brazil. There was no penalty given in Brazil for that turn 4 incident. Max Verstappen lunged late on that day, and the stewards on that day decided that it was a fair move. What they've decided here, once again, it was a fair move from Verstappen. Hamilton gave enough time back, so it was honours even at the end of this skirmish.
But the door was open and he drove through it, and he stayed on the racetrack. It wasn't, and he was leery in Saudi Arabia last weekend when he arrived sideways and out of control. and Lewis made an attempt, and that's why Max had to give the place back. And Lewis came back on the track within the corner and made a reasonable effort, having been pushed out of the way, to get on the track.
Seb Kravitz, very good evening to you.
Hello, Crofty. I didn't think it was going to get this controversial this early. Hello, Martin. Hello, everyone. I didn't know, but looking down from where I am in the pit lane across to the Red Bull pit wall, Christian Horner might as well have steam coming out of his ears. I understand he's been on the radio speaking directly to the race director, Michael Massey, to put his point of view. Maybe we'll hear from him in a second of what he had to say, but this is a result of Brazil with the FIA not clamping down on these things. When you start to leave interpretation into it rather than hard and fast rule, you get situations, confusing situations that would have been clear-cut in the past decisions.
On board with Charles Leclerc, is currently running 6th, but while we watch from the cockpit of the Ferrari, let's head down to the Red Bull pit wall. Christian Horner is with us. Christian, please, your reaction to the no action by the stewards.
We're a little bit shocked at that because apparently Lewis gave his advantage back, which we failed to see yet. So, you know, as you can imagine, we're not best pleased.
Is this what goes around comes around, Christian, with turn 4 Brazil and into some first corners in earlier races?
No, it's a total lack of consistency. So, you know, we're disappointed with it, but focus on the race now, and we've got to do it the hard way.
Christian, there will be a lot of people watching Formula One for the first time ever. When they're presented with a no action for one incident, no action for another, they'll find it hard to believe that's a total lack of consistency.
Well, you know, the race director made it very clear before the race that you had to stay within the white lines. Max did that. You know, Lewis gained an advantage by going off track. He didn't concede it. He didn't give anything back, so that was our position. But anyway, we're focused on the race, and still a long way to go.
Christian, thanks ever so much for joining us. We appreciate your instant reaction there. That's while we were talking to Christian, we saw Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll having a race all by themselves. 14th for Vettel, 15th for Stroll.
Go ahead.
Michael, we still don't understand it. That was a hard, aggressive pass by Max, but Max stayed fully on the track and he was ahead at the apex. He did everything right. He stayed on the track. At some point, the second car has to back out.
Jonathan, the stewards have reviewed it and determined that all of the lasting advantage was gained, and that Max...
Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton now 2 seconds out in front from Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Norris, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Bottas, Ocon and Ricciardo. We've got 3 world champions with us on Sky Sports F1 this weekend. Damon Hill, Jenson Button and Nico Rosberg. Nico, what's the champion's view?
Oh my goodness, so difficult. I think it's okay what they've done. Max was a little bit too lungy and too aggressive, forcing Lewis out too strongly, even though he had the right to the corner there because he was massively ahead, you know, but still. And then I would also say, though, that Lewis didn't give back everything that he gained. So there's like, it's tough, but I think it's okay like this.
Yeah, I tend to agree with what Nico said. I think when you look at it back, you know, you have to say that Lewis had to basically move out of the way because otherwise he's going to collide with Max, who made a very uncompromising, very late lunge, which left no room for Lewis to make any accommodation. He had to leave the track. But I have to say, I am surprised they didn't say, give the place back, because, you know...
Yeah, totally. I actually agree with you, Damon. It was a very late lunge, but it was always going to happen. Lewis knew he was coming. And he pushed Lewis off the track, I guess, but he stayed on the track. And I'm struggling to understand the regulations right now because obviously in Brazil there was no penalty, but they both drove off the circuit, whereas Max stayed on the track this time.
Gentlemen, thanks ever so much. I think Jos Verstappen's also struggling to come to terms with this. He just walked out the back of the Red Bull garage as Hamilton continues then on lap 8 in the lead of this race. We've had a big controversial moment and we'll be talking about this, I'm sure, for a long time to come.
Yeah, let's park that for now. What's interesting here is Lewis Hamilton actually has a little bit more pace as well, despite Verstappen being on the softer tyres. We thought they might be a little bit faster for half a dozen, 10 laps or so. But at the moment, that doesn't seem to be the case, unless Max is just trying to eke them out, because Sergio Perez is hanging on to them as well. 5 seconds covers the top 3. And now the strategists for both teams will be thinking long and hard. And how quickly? It's about 23 seconds to make a pit stop. But right now, anybody who stopped, for example, that put them down in 11th place. So they've got to get a lot further into this race yet before they can think about pitting.
Well, this is Verstappen's double problem here, is that if he is having to pit earlier than Hamilton because his tyres won't go as long into the race, he's going to put himself into traffic if he pits in the next 4 or 5 laps. They don't want to be doing that because it'll hold up his pace.
Rear started struggling a little bit.
That's not what they want to hear on the pit wall at Red Bull. Rear's starting to struggle. He'll lose grip. Coming out of those slower corners might lessen his pace down the straights as well.
Yeah, in other words, the surface is overheating, goes a bit like a jelly, and you start to slide around. You turn in, the back end comes around on you a bit. You touch the throttle, you can't quite get full traction until a good way out of the corner, until the downforce builds up. But they have no option but to stick with it for now. They've got to clear the pack before they can consider a pit stop. Now, otherwise, they're just being so much traffic. But they're lapping around 1.5 seconds a lap faster than the tail end of the top 10. And that's the window they'll be looking for. 23, 24 seconds to get Verstappen in and try and come up with a new solution.
Yeah, the gap that is appearing that I'm sure they'd like to fit into is just behind Sergio Perez and just in front of Carlos Sainz, who's become something of the head of a train of cars. These are the rear tyres for Max Verstappen. Pirelli say they've got a performance life of about 15 laps from the start of this race on heavy fuel and full tanks of fuel. I've seen angrier looking tyres, but I've seen shinier looking tyres too.
Yeah, it's the surface temperature, isn't it? So, you know, we have to accept that Max made that small error in qualifying. He made a big error last weekend. It cost him pole there. But it was such a crazy race in Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure in the end it made any difference who was on pole at the first of the 3 starts. But and that's what's forced him in to putting these tyres on and put the Red Bull on the back foot. Now they've got Perez there. It's like a game of chess, isn't it? They've got Perez there who could come into play and affect when Mercedes can pit Hamilton. But of course, if Hamilton comes out with fresher tyres, Perez will be a fairly easy target.
Assuming you can get them warmed up straight away, but what is clear, there is the length of that back straight, which is well over 1 kilometre long, in between Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz, 2nd and 4th in this race. Running behind Sainz, his former McLaren teammate Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc running in 6th at the moment, Yuki Tsunoda having a decent race running in 7th, Valtteri Bottas, and not for the first time this season, struggling to get past the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda, who's been rather held up back there. The wind has picked up just a little bit here as well, and a stiff breeze that you can see on the flag from the top of the viewing tower. Esteban Ocon runs in 9th, Daniel Ricciardo 10th, and Hamilton starting to stretch the pace out in front.
And of course there's a World Championship point for anybody who finishes in the top 10 with the fastest lap. That fastest lap will get much faster yet because they're burning down their 100+ kilos of fuel, have a much lighter car when they put tyres on.
There's the starts for Max Verstappen. 1/10 of a second better reaction time for Lewis Hamilton. There he goes, off into the distance. Was it just the reaction time that cost Verstappen?
It just didn't get away, did it?
And this, the moment then, as well, they didn't quite touch. Hamilton was trying to turn in, realised that if he turned in even more to the left, contact would be made. Verstappen has stayed within the white lines, but...
I'm not changing my mind on that. I'll stick with... Look. The door's open, he's gone through it, he's kept completely within the white lines, and a car that was side by side with him is heading off down the road.
The trouble is, the rules say it's leaving the track and gaining a lasting advantage is what gets you into trouble with the stewards.
These are great laps, Lewis, just keep it up. Keep the pressure
now,
on.
Hamilton had the advantage because he was out in front. Did he give back all the advantage he gained by going off the track? That's the debate here. And if Red Bull do want to appeal this race and ask for the right for review, that's the sort of information they're going to have to find to force an appeal.
Yeah, I don't think there's any point in them even thinking about that. But this pace from Lewis is now 1 second a lap faster than Verstappen. He's waltzing off into the distance anyway, such that will be probably irrelevant if it stays like this in terms of what happened on the first lap. And these are tremendously fast laps from Lewis. Look at that, 4.6 seconds. So what that means, Crofty, is that they've got, with that kind of gap, whatever Red Bull do with Verstappen, Mercedes can wait another lap.
Yeah.
Wait another lap. They've got there'll be no undercut. by somebody going out on fresher tyres and getting ahead of you, because they'll have enough slack in the system, enough fat in the system, if you like. If he can get himself towards 10 seconds ahead, they can then just casually react to whatever Red Bull do.
The orange in the grandstand is quite silent at the moment. The Red Bull garage looking a little bit despondent.
Red tyres are really struggling.
And Verstappen,
okay, understood, mate,
having to work very hard indeed to try and keep pace with Lewis Hamilton. Scores a level going into this race. As it stands at the moment, Lewis Hamilton would be an 8th world champion in Formula One, an 8-time world champion. Verstappen's bid for a first world title crown is being thwarted, but there is a long, long way to go. We're only just starting lap 13. Long way to go under the lights here in Abu Dhabi tonight, as Verstappen makes his way around turn 1.
Well, we thought these would go probably 20 laps, didn't we, before they were crying too much. They've obviously done 3 in qualifying anyway. So sort of 15, 16 laps before I'm surprised that Max is struggling so much, so quickly with them. And, well, what a pain it's proven to be for them, having to give away. That is so frustrating for Red Bull. They didn't even need to be doing that lap that he was on when he locked the front left tyre into turn 1.
Yep, it's forced a change in strategy and it forced them onto the back foot a little bit. Ted, down to you.
Max Verstappen not the only one who's struggling with his soft tyres. Lando Norris has been on the radio saying they're okay, they're all right, but he's struggling to keep pace with Carlos Sainz ahead of him. Now dropped to 3 seconds behind the Ferrari of Sainz has Lando. Fernando Alonso's been on the radio saying that something feels wrong with the front of his tyres. He's on front of his car. He's on the hard tyres. Maybe they're not up to temperature, but we'll have to follow that one to see what's going on with Fernando. He's P11 at the moment.
And I wonder if George Russell's struggling too, down in 18th at the moment.
Fernando, we keep losing gears. This might continue to happen.
Oh, and that's not what you want to hear when you're trying to keep the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc at bay as they make a move into the pit lane. Down at Red Bull is Max Verstappen coming in. Yes, he is. Lap 14 of 58, and Max Verstappen about to make what should be his one and only pit stop of this race. The hard tyre goes on, and he'll come out, hopefully for Red Bull, if they've got their strategy right, ahead of Carlos Sainz. Perez slips through into second place, but the Ferrari making its way down into turn 1. He's not going to come out ahead of Carlos Sainz. Where is Max Verstappen going to come out onto this track? He goes underneath it now. He's trying to put the power on, and onto the track he goes now. He is ahead of one Ferrari, but only just as Charles Leclerc goes off. And maybe a bit distracted by Verstappen coming onto the track. Leclerc going very, very wide, losing a place to Tsunoda, locking up going into turn 5. He didn't get past the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, did Max Verstappen, but with Charles Leclerc going wide like that, he could stay ahead of that Ferrari and easily passes Lando Norris now to move himself back up into 4th. Meanwhile, Yuki Tsunoda and Charles Leclerc are having their particular battle. Tsunoda staying ahead, but only just.
So the pit exit here, the weird pit exit underneath.
Okay, Lewis, so box.
This is what I was talking about. They can just react and copy whatever Red Bull do as Leclerc comes back underneath Yuki Tsunoda, but the pit exit feeds straight into the outside of turn 3, and that is the problem there.
So Sergio Perez will stay out and will go on to take the lead of this race. Neat stop by the Mercedes crew. 2.4 seconds stationary time for Lewis Hamilton. Has to trundle down the pit lane at 80 kilometers an hour. Now he can get the power on, but not too much power because that tunnel is very, very tight indeed. He disappears out of our view temporarily and will come onto a racetrack in the wide open spaces of this racetrack because he'll be ahead of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Verstappen's made his pit stop. He's 4th. Hamilton's made his pit stop. He's 2nd. And if you're a Sky Q or a Sky Glass customer and you're just joining us this afternoon, well, if you press your red button, you can watch the highlights alongside the live action. And this is Charles Leclerc as Max Verstappen comes out of the pits. Yeah. Was he distracted? Was it something to do with the car?
Now he got a swapper on. Look at that. He was he turned in to 3 and had to counter steer into a massive slide. Remember, he's got some overheated soft compound tyres on there as well, and it was it was quite the save for Leclerc there. But yeah, maybe he was a bit urgent as well, trying to get past, hoping to get past the Red Bull exiting the pit lane. But I don't know, I kind of feel game back on now to me.
Well,
okay, Hamilton's pitted. Plan A. Correction. Plan B. Plan B.
yes, plan A might have been to come into the pits. Plan B is to stay out there, and maybe Sergio Perez now can help Max Verstappen if Hamilton catches him by not going quite as fast as Hamilton and just try and slow up the momentum for Lewis Hamilton. And as it stands at the moment, that momentum is gaining and gaining and gaining with every lap, and there's not much that stopped him so far.
Yeah, you have to assume they'll leave Perez out in the hope of slowing Hamilton down in a few laps' time. Verstappen's catching his old teammate Carlos Sainz in a hurry now. Verstappen in the low 1:28, so he needs to pass the Ferrari very quickly as the other Ferrari of Charles Leclerc makes its first pit stop.
As does Esteban Ocon too. Neat stop once again then for the Ferrari crew, although 3.4 seconds, lost a little bit of time there. I'm sure that the likes of Norris and Sainz might be coming in a while as well. Ocon is out, Leclerc is out, Leclerc 15th and Ocon is 17th. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc's stopped. They lost a bit of time on the rear. I think it was the left rear. The tyre was a bit slow going on. Expecting to see whether Lando Norris reacts to the Ferrari, the one that was behind him pitting. We'll see in a second. I've had the line from Mercedes, guys. Do you want to know their view on the lap one shenanigans?
Well, I think everybody wants to know that, Ted.
Yeah, because, you know, we're all kind of, well, in any other race, in any other series, Lewis would have had to give the place back. They don't see it that way, understandably. They say it was a lunge from Max. He pushed Lewis off the track. I point out, well, they didn't touch. And they said they didn't touch only because Lewis avoided the collision. He tried to turn in, couldn't take his line and couldn't get round the corner, so had to go off and go across the runoff. That's the view from Mercedes. Take it as you will.
I used to call that motor racing.
So nothing wrong with it whatsoever then?
I made my point. So yeah, you can look at that either any which way that suits you really. But Verstappen, oh, look at that. Max then in the penultimate corner in the dirty air of the Ferrari, pushing hard. He said to me actually on Saturday night that in race conditions that penultimate turn 15 is a bit of a handful. It certainly was then. It was a handful of opposite lock.
It certainly was, and it's cost him maybe the chance to get past Carlos Sainz here, but he's got DRS, he's got an extra 9 miles an hour, so pace advantage, but he's too far back.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's wrecked his chance of passing him down the first straight. He's got another chance now, but it looks a bit lumpy coming out of the 6-7 chicane there. And that's cost Verstappen a lap of passing the Ferrari.
Unless he can get past into turn 9, and he had to think about it, didn't he? He thought the door might be open, but once again, just a bit too far behind. And yes, it has now cost him an extra lap, stuck behind his former teammate at Toro Rosso, Carlos Sainz. Meanwhile, at Sky Race Control, working out plans A, B, and possibly down to Z to Karun Chandok.
Yes, good evening, Property Martin. I think plan B could be Checo holding up Lewis Hamilton. You know, the gap initially was 11 seconds. It's now down to 6.5. Obviously, Lewis much quicker on new hard tyres. But I think that's why they've switched, just to try and, you know, put a bit of pressure on Mercedes. What else can they do?
Well, they could also try a very aggressive two-stop strategy with Max Verstappen. Martin Brundle, would that be worth a try? They've got nothing to lose, surely.
Well, that's the phrase, isn't it? Nothing to lose. But I think that's a little bit later on. We've still got 40 laps to go. But let's see if Perez can hold Lewis Hamilton up and for how long. I don't think it'll be long, personally.
Well, Hamilton chasing Perez, striking distance, powered by AWS, our battle forecast in 2 laps. Striking distance in 20 metres, Max Verstappen on Carlos Sainz. And into the chicane goes Max Verstappen on the fresher tyres. It's taken him a lap longer than he would have wanted, but Verstappen back up into the top 3, and now round about 8 seconds or so behind Lewis Hamilton, around about 12 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, as Sainz might try to force his weight. No, he can't round the outside. He had DRS down that straight, but he's not going to get past Verstappen there. So Perez leads, and it stands at the moment 4.3 seconds from Lewis Hamilton, and then comes Max Verstappen after this move. nicely executed, but to be fair, Sainz wasn't really fighting him into turn 6.
No, Carlos knows that's not his fight for this evening. He's up against Lando Norris in the McLaren and his teammate Charles Leclerc as well, and having a very strong end to the season, isn't he? This would be his 14th consecutive points finish, wouldn't it? Or maybe 15th even for Carlos Sainz.
Carlos Sainz has been putting together the longest active scoring streak on the grid, 14 races, as you said, Martin, despite failing to reach Q3 in 6 of those races. He's got 19 points finishes in total, tied with Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton as the most points finishes in this season. Meanwhile, Norris's McLaren teammate Daniel Ricciardo pits. Norris running down in 13th, but as we heard a little while ago, losing some gears from time to time. He's still running out on the track, but his pace not exactly brilliant at the moment.
Yeah, he's got 8 of them, 8 gears, but obviously what they mean is obviously he's pulling for some shifts and they're not working sometimes. And then as Daniel Ricciardo exits that rather tortuous pit lane, although we've never had an incident in there, have we? We've been coming here since 2009. Everybody was fearful of that pit lane. I think it's such a peril, such a challenge through there.
Okay, we'll be looking to hold up Lewis. I think it's best to do that. Is it 2 seconds?
So the regulations say a Formula 1 car must not be any wider than 2 metres.
How wide do you think Sergio Perez can make that Red Bull at the moment then? Probably needs to quadruple the width, or mentally at least. How can he hold up Lewis Hamilton in this part of the track? Probably a little easier than down the back straights, and certainly towards the end of the lap he could just slow down the momentum somewhat, but this is really playing the team game for Sergio Perez, who gave his teammate a brilliant tow to try and help him to pole in yesterday's qualifying. Sainz is now pitting, as you can see on the left hand side of your screen, but Lewis, with a good exit here, should be able to get past Perez.
Yeah, he'll have DRS. Perez will have saved his battery for attack down here, but he can weave around a bit. But in the end, the track is too wide. Lewis will be nervous of the back of the Red Bull, and Perez will have a lunge up the inside. Inevitably, Lewis cuts back underneath him, and that's exactly what we expected to happen. He will now drive past him, give him a cheery little wave, and that was about all Perez could do, or was it? Perez with DRS is coming back into turn 9.
Can Perez make it into turn 9? He saved up a bit of energy from that battery store, and with a bit of DRS possibly as well, has blasted past Lewis Hamilton, so he is going to hold him up just that little extra bit. This is a very, very good tussle here. Perez as absolutely on the limit and as fair as he can be.
Back him up,
and parked on the apex of the slow corners, so plenty of battery and DRS. And wow, he breezed back past, didn't he?
Didn't he just? Although the Red Bull, certainly with Max Verstappen, has had more pace than the Mercedes down the straight. You can see flecks of paint coming up from the curbs as they make their way around the final 2 turns. Hamilton's going to try and get Perez into turn 1. He'll have to go the long way around the outside to do it, and can't quite do it. Perez playing the ultimate team game here for Max Verstappen, and this is really frustrating Lewis Hamilton. It's going to be hurting his tyres a little bit as well. And whilst Verstappen has just put in a 1:28.3 for the final lap, Perez and Hamilton in the 1:34s and the 1:33s. The gap now coming down between Verstappen and Hamilton. You can see him right in the background. Hamilton needs to get past Perez here. He does get past Perez. He moves towards the inside. He's going to force Perez the long way round if Perez is going to try and retake that lead of the race. But on lap 21, Hamilton does get past Perez, but Perez has played the ultimate team game, and he's really brought his teammate back into play.
And he can give his teammate a bit of DRS for good measure, so great team play. That's the team play we talked about earlier on. Now he gets clean out of the way.
Give Max DRS, back up, Max DRS.
Hugh Bird, his race engineer, telling him to back off there and keep out of Max Verstappen's way. So that gap that was over 6 seconds, now 1.3 seconds, and all of a sudden the Dutch grandstand's woken up, and I'm sure a lot of other people have too.
Yeah, I said this feels game on.
Oh, Checo is a legend.
Absolute animal.
This time last year, Checo Perez was retiring from the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. He didn't quite know where he was going in Formula One. He got signed up by Red Bull, and he has really helped his teammate Max Verstappen. But Verstappen now has got to try and keep the pace with Hamilton as Perez does come into the pits. And as it stands on this lap, Hamilton seems to be pulling away a little bit from Max Verstappen. In the practice sessions, don't forget, Mercedes ran on the hard compound tyre with full fuel. Red Bull were trying the soft compound tyre, and they haven't used these hard tyres throughout the weekend so far. This is when Hamilton got past Perez, but it didn't end there, did it?
I half expected Perez to come slithering up the inside there again, but Lewis very carefully pinned him to the outside of the track.
I think Lewis was looking to cut off any threat down the inside. This has been quite the duel, and an unexpected duel between the Red Bull and the Mercedes, but not Verstappen and the Red Bull on that occasion.
But once again, what are we looking at? So Max is a 10th quicker through the middle part of this lap. 10th down in the first part is not all in it, but we've seen such raw speed, haven't we, of this Mercedes-Benz in the hand of Hamilton, particularly for the last 3 Grand Prix. And it's now Max in the turbulent air behind him. But yeah, we're not even halfway through yet.
What else could happen on this night of all nights for Formula One here at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? Hamilton leads, still has one hand and a little bit on that championship trophy. Max Verstappen is going to try and keep pace with him, but he's struggling to do that as it stands currently. Yuki Tsunoda runs in 3rd place. He hasn't pitted yet. Neither has Valtteri Bottas. Sergio Perez has, currently in 5th place, and we can head down to 10.
Kimi Raikkonen has made his last scheduled stop in Formula One, Crofty. It was okay. Wasn't so quick, but it was all right. Maybe a sort of summing up the latter stages of the career if you were cynical about it. But yeah, it was not bad. Right, let's move to Lando Norris. And even though stopping early, he hasn't managed to close any time on Carlos Sainz. Actually, Carlos Sainz has extended his lead over Lando Norris. And now Lando Norris has got Sebastian Vettel, who hasn't pitted yet, between him and the Ferrari. So Sainz securing what is going to end up to be a fight for P5, P6.
Goodbye, Kimi Raikkonen, Ferrari's last world champion. He retires from Formula One this evening. Farewell, possibly forever, but hopefully not, to Antonio Giovinazzi, his teammate at Alfa Romeo. And happy birthday, Tonio, for Tuesday as well. Valtteri Bottas says farewell to Mercedes as he moves to Alfa Romeo. George Russell says goodbye to Williams and hello to Mercedes for next season. We say goodbye to the 13-inch tyre in Formula One tonight. It's 18 inches for next season. The barge board, as you said on the grid walk, Martin, it's a goodbye to the barge board for 2022. First appeared back in 1993, did the barge board, and it's also farewell to Paul James, Team Operations Director, the man who sits on the pit wall at McLaren.
So we're going to the end? We're looking what we can do to help Max.
Paul, after...
So consider plan A for now. Consider plan A for now. Let's push on.
And Paul, after 26 seasons with McLaren, is opting to stay back at base. And we won't see him on the pit wall for next season.
Little frozen tear on my cheek for we're losing Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah.
The man who doesn't have adrenaline in his bloodstream, he has antifreeze.
Kimi Raikkonen, the most Grand Prix starts by any driver. The man who before this race had raced 57,454 miles in Formula One. I think he's due to put his feet up, but I get the feeling he'll be racing in something. That's very much in his veins.
What did he say to me in that interview on Saturday? I hate it. I hate everything. He's so over. He loves driving a Formula One car. He's so over anything else to do with being a Formula One driver.
Not talking to you ever. Again. And he said with a smile on his face. Sebastian Vettel has come into the pits. That's where you see him dropping down into 16th place. So those that haven't pitted so far, Valtteri Bottas doing a sterling job on those medium compound tyres. Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly, who are on the hard tyres to start off with. And also Nicholas Latifi and George Russell also still going quite long with their first stint.
As we said in Brazil, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Red Bull and Verstappen don't have an answer to Hamilton and Mercedes' raw speed.
And the engine that's powering Lewis Hamilton made its debut, of course, in Brazil, where he took a penalty on the grid for the Grand Prix, took an even bigger penalty for the sprint race, started that last. and then started 10th for the Grand Prix, went on to win it. And Brazil was the start of quite a treble of races for Lewis Hamilton, where he's won the last 3, and for the 8th time in his career, on course at the moment to win 4 in a row. What have Red Bull and Max Verstappen got up their sleeves? What can they do strategically? Will Sergio Perez come back into the equation again?
Look at these two, yet again. They're 20 seconds clear of the rest of the pack. Such is the form that they're both on. And what a privilege it's been to watch these two this year.
Yeah, we see drivers coming and going in Formula One. We can remember Lewis Hamilton's debut in Melbourne all those years ago in 2007, where he went round the outside of his experienced teammate and world champion Fernando Alonso at the first corner. He has gone on to absolutely dominate in Formula One, and for the last 1,506 days Lewis Hamilton has been world champion. But it was pretty clear from the outset that Verstappen would soon be challenging him. Didn't take long, Martin, for you to say that Verstappen will be a world champion one day. It might still be his day here in Abu Dhabi this evening, but he's going to have to produce a pretty epic Champions drive from here.
I did say that back in 2016. I didn't think it would take until at least 2022 before it happened.
So this was on lap 20. Lewis Hamilton trying to get past Sergio Perez, and if he was wary of any contact with the Red Bull, he certainly didn't show it. He left enough space.
Michael, it's a bit dangerous. Can you warn them?
So far they're racing, Toto, hard racing.
And I agree with Michael Massey, the race director there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think... I fully expected Sergio to lunge back up the inside down into turn 6, but...
Meanwhile, as we watch what happened on lap 20 between Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton and how they came very, very close together, I think Kimi Raikkonen's Formula One career has come to an end, and he's stopped out on track. He's had a bit of a brush with the barriers, but he's managed to keep going again. There is Kimi Raikkonen, damage to the left-hand side of his front wing end plates. Well, can Kimi Raikkonen get back to the pits, change his front wing and make it to the checkered flag? Because in his last race we want to see Kimi Raikkonen take the checkered flag here, but he's definitely had a brush with the barriers, Martin, and this can often happen in the final race of somebody's career.
Yeah, the brakes. Well, no.
So it sounds like he's got a braking issue. So that's because he's going slower than you'd imagine. I mean, the front wing's fine, but let's see what happened.
So this is down into turn 6. Ooh, yeah, that absolutely looked like a braking issue.
Yeah, it's like pulling the handbrake on. The brake-by-wire has led him down there somewhere, and the rear axle has locked on him.
The brake-by-wire system helps the very skinny rear brakes adjust themselves somewhat with some engine braking and retardation to stop the cars at the end of the straight doing 200 miles an hour in the space of about 80 metres. Ted, down to you.
Oh, Kimi, it's not going to end like this, is it? They're checking out the front of the car. They're having a look whether there's anything they can see that's wrong with the brakes. Something stopped him.
2 seconds, Ted.
Lost drive.
He's turned the car off. He's turned the car off. George Russell's been struggling with upshifts in his gearbox for the last lap or two. Wanted to come in when you're on the replays of the Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton, and now he's lost drive as well. So if George doesn't make it back to the pits and stops out onto the track, that could be a virtual safety car that might help Valtteri Bottas. But oh, Kimi, he's getting a round of applause. They're on their feet in the grandstand, giving him a round of applause to say thank you, Kimi, for everything. We loved you. You're such a character, but that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Kimi Raikkonen. You know what you're doing. We will leave you alone now. George Russell limping back to the pits meanwhile, saying on the team radio he's lost drive. It's been a bit of a struggle in this race throughout for George Russell, and this the moment where his power unit stopped delivering the power that he really wanted.
So it's 5th gear, he pulled 2 and it broke. Sad moment. He did leave us F1 back in 2009, after a couple of years of rallying. Said he didn't expect to be back in Formula One at that point.
So glad he did, and we'll all remember the US Grand Prix in 2018 and what a magnificent victory that was for Kimi. What a career it's been. Mark Arnold with him, his personal trainer, who's been by his side throughout. Kimi wearing the replica helmets of his first helmets in Formula One from all those years ago when he made his debut with Sauber back in 2001. And it's all come to an end, not just for him, but for George Russell as well. Both out of this race. Karun, to you.
Yeah, Crofty, I think Red Bull are starting to think about the second pit stop. They've just asked Max Verstappen for a front wing update, which means, what do you want us to change when you come in the pits? And they wouldn't be asking that if he wasn't going to come in. So I think they've got to roll the dice and do something different. The tricky thing is, Bottas is inside.
It's a long way for this tire, I think.
Copy.
That's right. So if Mercedes are also looking, I'm sure they're listening to Verstappen's radio, Bottas is in Verstappen's pit window at the moment. So it's a little bit tricky for Max to pit right now, but they are going to watch that for a second pit stop, I think.
So would Lewis Hamilton, saying that he's got a long way to go on these tyres, have to cover Max Verstappen if Verstappen pits again?
He would. He's got 3.6 seconds at the moment. Verstappen just did a personal best. He's done a personal best first sector. Remember before I said when he had 4.85 odd seconds, they had enough fat in the system to react one lap later. 3.6, bit of a sticky wheel nut, or that's not enough where you'd say, yeah, we'll just pit after Max pits.
And Max Verstappen, as we see his partner Kelly Piquet watching on from the Red Bull garage. Max Verstappen has a new set of hard tyres that they could fit on. They haven't got any new sets of tyres to put on Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. We're on lap 29 or lap 30 now of 58 if you're watching in the UK and Ireland on Sky Q or Sky Glass. Press your red button if you want to watch the highlights of this race so far alongside the live action. And if Red Bull are thinking of a pit stop, then then Hamilton might have just been given a wake up by the team to say, come on, it's hammer time here, Lewis. We could do with a bit of a bigger gap between yourself and Max.
Which has now got up to just over 4 seconds, as you can see top left. But
so one more lap, everything you got.
Hammer time for Valtteri Bottas too, running in third place at the moment. Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, who hasn't pitted. Perez running in fourth, has made a stop. Alonso and Gasly still to stop in this race, running 5th and 6th. Sainz ahead of Norris, Leclerc ahead of Tsunoda. That's the top 10. Outside of that, Esteban Ocon starting to up his pace a little bit, but quite a bit behind Yuki Tsunoda in the points. Daniel Ricciardo running in 12th, Giovinazzi 13th, Vettel, Stroll, Schumacher, Latifi, who's a lap down, and we've lost Kimi Räikkönen for this race, and George Russell, whose Williams career ends with consecutive DNFs.
Yeah, so 17 runners, so obviously you've got less and less chance of virtual or actual safety cars, or even a red flag, of course, as well. So it becomes a strategy race in that respect, and you're right, Lewis has put the hammer down, and the gap just squeezing a little bit further out, isn't it? But this is a key time.
Well, Red Bull have a gap to drop Max Verstappen into. They can pit him, and he could well come out ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who is yet to stop and actually coming into the pits now. So will this make up Red Bull's mind a little bit? And it looks like it's Valtteri Bottas coming into the pits. It looks like Verstappen is going to stay out for at least one more lap. So there's a definite gap now to pit Verstappen into. But is there enough time for Verstappen to make up the difference between 4 seconds and 24 seconds to get Lewis Hamilton by the end?
They didn't look brand new tyres they put on Lewis's car, I didn't think, but we do know that both Red Bulls have got 2 new sets of hard compound tyres available, and they're only allocated 2 for the weekend.
Yeah.
So they haven't run them until the race. It seems slightly bizarre, doesn't it? But I guess they know enough about their tyres and their cars now. But yeah, it is. So we'll just keep an eye on whether Lewis has actually still got a brand new set. I don't know why they wouldn't have put them on, but they look like they've been slightly run.
1 new set of hards for Lewis Hamilton, 2, as Martin said, for the Red Bulls. Valtteri Bottas had a new set of hard compound tyres. He's chasing after the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. with Yuki Tsunoda in the background. That was a lock-up there from the Ferrari. That's going to get Valtteri Bottas very interested now as they make their way out of the chicane and along the second of the back straights past the support paddock, and Leclerc's weaving around a bit, trying to break the toe and doing a very decent job, but Bottas is still gaining on him into the new banked hairpin. We come at turn 9. Bottas just has to back off a little bit. No room pass for the Finn on that particular occasion, and he sticks down in 9th place as the lights, the 4,700 spotlights that surround this wonderful track, this impressive facility here in Abu Dhabi, start to take effect. The lights from the hotel as well shining out to add even more colour as round the marina we wind our way and down the main straight. Leclerc keeping Bottas at bay.
So 4.6 up to 5 seconds now for Hamilton as Max Verstappen navigates, nearly just about navigates his way past Mick Schumacher to lap him. And now you're starting to see a big enough gap where you can react a lap later to your rivals.
Yeah, and even if you're half a second or so behind in terms of your length of pit stop, it shouldn't make too much difference. By the way, Red Bull have made 13 pit stops this season that are quicker than the fastest Mercedes pit stop. Mercedes with a fastest stop of the 2.1 seconds. Here comes Valtteri Bottas, having a look once again at the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Once again, not quite having the pace to get past the young Monegasque driver. Leclerc with a couple of pole positions this season, but no wins for him or his teammate. Ferrari facing consecutive winless seasons for the first time since 92 and 93. There goes Bottas, having a look down the inside, but there's no room for the Finn to try and force his way past.
Now, a slightly naughty little wiggle there from Charles Leclerc into the new bank turn 9 of the steering wheel, and it somewhat cut off any ambition that Valtteri Bottas had there.
It's a track that offers overtaking opportunities. I was talking to Andreas Seidel, the McLaren team boss. He said this should be some tonight.
And Lewis, if we were to stop under safety car, would you prefer medium or hard?
Both tires felt good. There's my tires. 2.
So your choice. Keep your options open. Yeah, Seidel saying that we should have overtaking opportunities. I'd like to see a little bit more. It's certainly been better than previous Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, but I'm not quite sure the track changes have gone far enough, Martin, to give us the overtaking opportunities we really want to see. And this is on board with Charles Leclerc, and I can watch this all night. What a brilliant view.
Yeah, your head moves around a lot, but somehow brilliantly your eyes can level that all out as Bottas then in the slipstream with his rear wing open. But then looked nowhere near, is he? Nowhere near enough. But the tail end of that Ferrari has been sliding around in various corners. And Valtteri Bottas will get another helping now then of DRS as Leclerc moves right to try and break the slipstream. And then Bottas surely going to head up the inside, and surely not, because he, for some reason, went around the outside. And then, of course, Leclerc with track position.
Well, yep, you said it, Martin. Surely he should have got past round the outside. Other drivers might have been a little more brave. Valtteri Bottas deciding against that on that occasion. The previous lap and the previous lap before that. And his pain and suffering continues then. Stuck behind the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Out in front, his teammate Lewis Hamilton. 5.5 seconds clear of Max Verstappen. We're on lap 34 of 58. And the championship trophy going Hamilton's way as it stands. Sergio Perez running in third. Red Bull with a double podium, but not enough.
Yeah, doing a good job. Really good job.
But not enough to deny Mercedes an 8th Constructors' Championship in a row. Behind Perez comes Alonso and Gasly. They still haven't come into the pits yet. Ted Kravitz.
That gap between Hamilton and Verstappen is just growing lap by lap. Hamilton is dropping Verstappen at this stage of the race. So there is inherent speed in that Mercedes, and Hamilton is using every bit of it. That race you say between Alonso and Gasly, we're not seeing it because there are other things more important perhaps going on, but it's really tight, Crofty. They're separated by only a second and a half each time round. I don't know which way it's going to go. Gasly's actually recovering well because it looked like Alpine was the faster car here, but Ocon out of the points at the moment in 11th. But Fernando holding on to P4 ahead of Gasly. The pit stop's not too far away for those two.
And at the 4th time of asking, Valtteri Bottas gets past Charles Leclerc. And it just seems that he had better traction coming out of the hairpin, and Charles Leclerc, as you mentioned, Martin, his rear end sliding around a little bit in previous laps, just didn't have the grip to brake as late as Bottas either and hold up the Mercedes for very much longer. So Bottas is now free then to chase after the car in front, which is Lando Norris. And what's this? This looks like a car moving slowly, maybe trying to get out of the way. Antonio Giovinazzi, either trying to get out of the way or he's got a problem.
No shifting, no shifting. Okay, copy.
Or maybe a bit of both.
Hydraulic issue then
for Antonio Giovinazzi. So one teammate in his final race in Formula One and the other teammate in his final race for the team and potentially Formula One are both retiring from this race. Now, where's he parked, Martin, in terms of could we get a safety car here?
He's parked in a tricky situation. He's a long way from the service road. He could have parked a bit closer to the service road. I see no option but to put out a virtual safety car there. It doesn't look like the sort of place you can just cover with double wave yellows and put marshals out there. You can see he's right in the firing line there on the exit of turn 9, which is a very fast corner. So I can't believe they'll cover that in anything other than a virtual safety car, which means then, of course, the leaders will pit.
He is parked in a very handy spot if he wants to go and pop onto a boat, like Kimi Räikkönen did once when he crashed out in Monaco. There is the virtual safety car, as you said, Martin. Not a very handy place indeed for moving that car. So, on the exit of turn 9, there is a stranded Alfa Romeo. We now have a virtual safety car. So, all the drivers decrease their speed by 40%. No overtaking. The race pretty much gets neutralised. But these cars can pit, and Ted Kravitz, I get the feeling some will be coming in.
So the Ferrari first of all is pitting, and it
takes 2 seconds.
So staying out.
Lewis Hamilton is staying out.
I would have thought it would be an easy decision. Even if they're thinking of pitting later on, they're staying out. That's odd. So it is Charles Leclerc just waiting to see whether Fernando Alonso. Surely this is a gift for Alonso and Gasly to pit as well. The Alpine mechanics came out to the pit lane. They're just checking their wheel guns, hanging around like nothing's happening, like they haven't been told. And now they're sort of not doing anything. McLaren are coming out as well.
Ted, the reason Alonso and Gasly aren't pitting yet is they haven't reached turn 6 yet. But Verstappen's coming in, I think.
Box and pit confirm, please, Max. Box, pit confirm.
You've got to, yeah.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's a cheap pit stop, probably 10 odd seconds. Put some different tyres on it, and you know, there's a second set of brand new hard compound tyres. It's a no-brainer. They haven't got the pace to win this by catching and passing the Mercedes. So that was do whatever Hamilton doesn't do.
And he can also utilise this bit of track underneath the tunnel, maybe to shave off a little bit more time as well, because the safety car one line and won't be with him until he makes his exit from out of that tunnel and back onto the track again. Perez is going to pit too. So Hamilton continues to lead from Verstappen, but Verstappen's now got a brand new set of the hard compound tyre on, and he really can chase after him in a moment.
Michael, please, no safety car interferes in the race, please not.
And that's Toto Wolff saying, don't give us a safety car and close the pack up. Especially now Max Verstappen's pitted on and is on fresher tyres. Can he do that sort of thing?
I don't think that's right, trying to influence Michael Massey's got a safety. He's in charge of safety around here. And but I guess what Mercedes were nervous of there is if Hamilton pitted and Verstappen stayed out and kept track position. So it was really only ever going to play into Red Bull's hands, because they've kind of lost it at the moment. They've lost both championships at the moment, the way the race was unfolding. But you couldn't send marshals out into the exit of turn 9, 120, 130 mile an hour corner with just double wave yellow flags. You couldn't do it.
So the virtual safety car is ending as they are pushing that Alfa Romeo away.
So gap to Verstappen now, 17.9 seconds.
How is it 17? How has he not lost 21 seconds?
VSC, Lewis.
We're going to be in trouble. Got this up.
So a safety car, a virtual safety car or a safety car reduces your pit stop loss to about 13-14 seconds. Normally it's about 22 seconds. That is how Verstappen has got a cheaper second pit stop. But what this means now is that on lap 38 out of 58 it is very much all up for grabs, because Hamilton is on a set of tyres that have done 23 laps. Verstappen is on a new set of tyres that have now done 1 lap. So what is Verstappen's pace going to be between now and the checkered flag, and can he close down the gap between himself and Lewis Hamilton? Game on to the checkered flag, under 17 seconds, the gap between Hamilton and Verstappen. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the way of it towards the end of the race, isn't it, Crofty? But I'm still sort of struggling to think, would there have been a way, even if Hamilton had come in, at least he would have been on new tyres. Yes, all right, Verstappen might have done the opposite, but Verstappen would have been on old tyres.
Okay, Lewis, that gap at 17.0 for Verstappen. He will need 0.8 a lap on us to catch. So we just need to keep that in mind.
He might well get it, Crofty. It's exactly what he might have with those fresher tyres.
This is going to be an intriguing, absorbing, potentially thrilling, maybe controversial end. Who knows, to the Formula One season. But the one thing I do know is it is not going to be dull. Stick with this, because that virtual safety car has come out at a very nice time for Red Bull and Max Verstappen, and Hamilton, with 1.5 hands on the trophy, is going to have to hang on.
He's got great speed, but remember, he said a while ago, I'm not sure these tyres will go to the end. They're 25 laps old already.
And on that last lap, the difference between Hamilton and Verstappen in terms of their lap times, 0.8 of a second.
This is going to need a Michael Schumacher-esque 20 qualifying laps.
Bit of a risk leave me out, no?
Yeah, the potential to lose track position, Lewis, too high.
That's what we were talking about, isn't it? Yeah. They knew Red Bull would do the opposite, and then of course any kind of issue between the two plays into Red Bull's hands. So they were kind of damned if they did and damned if they didn't. I'm surprised they didn't come in the pits, but that was their call. We don't want to lose track position to Max Verstappen, but I was starting to say they need to be Schumacher-esque qualifying laps now. Banzai, flat out, 20 perfect qualifying laps for Max Verstappen if he's going to rescue this World Championship.
There are nerves on the pit wall at Mercedes, there are nerves on the pit wall at Red Bull. Hamilton then ahead of Verstappen, the gap under 16 seconds. Perez runs in third place ahead of Sainz and Norris. Bottas in sixth, Tsunoda, Alonso, Gasly and Ocon. This is Fernando Alonso. That's how he got past Pierre Gasly, and that's how Gasly got repassed.
Yeah, he tried to push me off. I was in front, in the corner braking, so it should be okay.
And that's an old message, because Fernando would not have been speaking as he went down the inside of Pierre Gasly, ran himself off the track and over the curb. Did he stay ahead of Pierre Gasly? But he's ahead of him on the track at the moment.
Tsunoda, wasn't it? I think.
Oh, is that
in that particular instant? But,
oh yeah, you're right.
There we go again. Pulling the downshifts like crazy. Right.
Incidents involving Tsunoda and Alonso, no investigation necessary. Tsunoda is now back ahead of Alonso, so the stewards consistent in their application of the rules. If you remember back to turn 6 on the first lap, where they decided no investigation necessary, Hamilton and Verstappen at that time.
So it feels to me as if raw pace alone.
Yeah, well, I won't be able to keep this pace up for the whole way.
Yeah, copy Lewis. Yeah, we should both be on a dead curve though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say actually. I think absolutely on raw pace alone, Lewis should have it covered, unless he starts getting tyre degradation, unless his tyres start falling away from him. And that's a big if, isn't it?
Yeah, and that happy sounding Lewis Hamilton, when he was asked what tyres would you want if we stopped under a safety car, just sounds a little more tense when we hear him on the radio now. 14.8 seconds the gap at the end of lap 40.
And that's what's even more confusing, isn't it? They were talking about if there's a safety car, which tyre should we put on? And they didn't stop, but we know why. They said they didn't want to give up track position.
Well, when you're out in front, you haven't got the luxury of waiting to decide what the other guy is going to do.
No, but at the same time, it wasn't going to really cost him badly, was it, in terms of the pressure? Anyway, that's what they decided to do, and Ted's got more news.
Before that, though, Martin, let's go to Karun at Sky Race Control.
Yeah, thank you, Crofty. I've just clarified with Mercedes, he did put on a scrubbed set of tyres, so good spot there, Martin Brundle. It was a set that they only scrubbed for 1 lap, though, so it was nearly new when they pitted Lewis. He has got, therefore, a brand new set of hard tyres, which he's now unlikely to use. So they have that option of a new set and elected not to do it.
It's like leaving your favourite chocolate, isn't it, in the box, and then somebody throws the box away or something. They're gone. You won't want to be pitting for them now, otherwise the World Championship's gone. So we'll watch these sector times. Interestingly, middle part of the lap, Lewis Hamilton is a 10th faster on these, and he's doing personal best as well. So Hamilton has got good speed, and now it's Ted.
Yes, Ted.
Hello, Crofty. Yes, just quick on Valtteri Bottas. The virtual safety car came too late for him. He'd already pitted, has emerged behind Lando Norris. Now this is all shaken out and is chasing the young Briton from Somerset very hard. Bottas looking like he's lining up for a move on Lando Norris on much, much fresher tyres.
And there goes Pierre Gasly on Fernando Alonso, and there is Esteban Ocon and Lando and Daniel Ricciardo in the battle for the 1 remaining points place in this race, which out in front is separated by 14.3 seconds as the AlphaTauri stays ahead of the Alpine going into turn 9 a few races ago. AlphaTauri and Alpine were locked together on points in the championship, but a podium for Fernando Alonso in Qatar, and then a 4th place for Esteban Ocon in Saudi have rather helped Alpine to pull away in that championship battle. They're in 5th place, and fingers are being crossed absolutely everywhere you look at the moment, except in the cockpit of the AlphaTauri. Difficult to drive with your fingers crossed, I would imagine.
Yeah, he's got his arms crossed now with almost full lock. These cars have got useless steering lock on them, the opposite to a London taxi basically, because the front tyres are so fat. You don't get much lock on them.
So, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix has Lewis Hamilton still out in the lead. 14.8 seconds was the gap a couple of laps ago as the drivers crossed the line. Max Verstappen making his way round the final turn as Lewis Hamilton heads down towards the hairpin. The gap now 14.1 seconds.
Yeah, it's been about 0.3 of a second. We have seen Lewis Hamilton somehow mercurially hang on to a set of tyres that shouldn't be giving as much grip as they do. And that's what he's doing at the moment again. But will they hang on? Can he keep pushing that hard? And the tyres hang on. They are the hardest compound, after all, that we got here this weekend.
But they are right slap bang in the middle of that Pirelli range. When we say the hard tyre, they're not the hardest of hard tyres. In some tracks, they would be the soft tyre, depending on how many fast corners and heavy braking zones we've got on that particular circuit. One thing is for sure, we're on lap 43. This is going right down to the wire with Verstappen chasing Hamilton. And if Verstappen wants more pace when he gets past the Dutch grandstand at the end of the back straight, he's going to feel the applause and the roar every time he gets there to try and help him on this charge. Ted, down to you.
This is going to go down to the wire. I'd hate to be on the Mercedes pit wall at the moment, but just across the pit lane here, it all looks calm there. I wonder what Christian Horner's thinking as well, but maybe we can speak to him in a bit. But Pirelli say this hard tyre will do 50 laps. But we've seen higher degradation in the race in real time. All those figures that Pirelli say were based on practice, Crofty. I think we've seen higher degradation in the race. So, yeah. It can do 50 laps, will it? And at the end of it, will they be very fast? Well, we're going to find out.
Yeah, it's like rock stars could do a 7-hour concert, but they might be a bit tired by the end of it. We're on board with Valtteri Bottas, who for just one moment going into turn 9 thought Lando Norris was there for the taking. Norris stays ahead.
It's a long way for Hamilton to go.
Sergio Perez currently running 3rd and around about 40 seconds off the race lead.
So, last 5 laps, Verstappen 0.6 faster, then 0.5, then 0.4, 0.4, and then 0.2 of a second. It seems he's getting, at this stage, every bit as much degradation, deg as we like to call it, as Lewis Hamilton out front.
On board with Max Verstappen through that banking of turn 9. We make our way now.
And we've got a group of 4 cars ahead who are battling.
Because back markers might come into play in this race as well. Hamilton being told that those back markers are Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon, Daniel Ricciardo and Charles Leclerc, and they are scrapping away for points. So it's a bit unfair to call them back markers, but cars that are next in line to be lapped.
Yeah, I guess if you're used to the hybrid era at Mercedes-Benz, they all look like back markers. But I think well, I'm pretty sure what Bono's explaining there is extra caution. It cost me second place in Detroit once by passing somebody, and whoever they were fighting with didn't realise that I was coming through as well, and that is a bit of a problem. I mean, these are very experienced drivers here, but basically Lewis needs to tread slightly carefully, because that's a battle royal going on. He's about to hoover up.
Yeah, they're obliged to jump out of the way when the car that's about to lap them is about 1.2 seconds behind, and blue flags will be waved. But you know, depends where you get to these back markers. Sometimes you can breeze past on the straight, other times you might have to stick with it for a few corners before they can finally let you go through. And a right old battle royal this really is, with Esteban Ocon gaining on his teammate Fernando Alonso, with Alonso trying to gain on Pierre Gasly, but not really making much progress in that particular scrap. 9/10 of a second Alonso was slower than Gasly. You can see going through turn one right now on the previous lap. Right at the back of this battle is Charles Leclerc, and then comes Lewis Hamilton, who can see it all unfolding in front of him.
With a dozen laps to go and nearly 14 seconds advantage, he was told by his engineer he's got to be 0.8 a lap faster than you to catch you. He's nowhere near fast enough in that respect, is Max Verstappen at the moment.
Now, once again, Red Bull are looking for something beyond their control to try and help bring them back into this race. They've had the virtual safety car, which has helped. They had that great defence by Sergio Perez, which very much helped, but they might need something else to bring Max Verstappen back into this race. You could just see the Red Bull in the distance down that back straight as Hamilton disappeared through the chicane. Verstappen, who's been on the podium 17 times this season, either first or second, is on for another second place here. It'll give him the season record for the most amount of podiums scored, but it won't give him the World Championship as it stands. Lewis Hamilton on course to become champion, as one champion watches on as we talk about the other. Oscar Piastri, well done to you. Formula 2 champion for 2021. What a brilliant season that young man has had, and I'm sure we'll see him in Formula 1 eventually. In Formula 1 at the moment, 46 out of 58. We're on lap 46. We're reaching the climax of the season. Hamilton's coming up to lap 3. He's already lapped 1 in the case of Charles Leclerc, and Verstappen's trying to chase after him, but he's just not finding the pace. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
Well, you mentioned Charles Leclerc. That pitting under the virtual safety car really hasn't worked out well for Charles Leclerc at all. He's rejoined behind Daniel Ricciardo and is in a fight with Ocon and Alonso a bit further up for 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. So not working out well for Charles Leclerc, but it is working out, staying out, the right thing to do for Carlos Sainz in the sister Ferrari. P4, and looking good for it as well.
Yeah, and doing a great job is also Lando Norris, keeping Valtteri Bottas at bay all the way, despite giving away the drag reduction system, both carrying Mercedes-Benz engines, of course.
And after we heard earlier in the race that he was losing gears and having technical difficulties, Lando Norris in a very solid 5th place at the moment. And for Lando Norris, a 5th place that would give him 5th place in the championship. Charles Leclerc out of the points, the driver currently in 5th in the standings. Norris could move into the top 5, which he deserves for this season. It's been a really, really excellent season for Lando Norris. Could have had a win in Russia, that didn't go his way. Got a pole in Russia, but he has been on the podium 4 times and leading that McLaren charge.
It says I've got 8 laps on my dash.
Ignore the dash. Ignore the dash.
At this stage of a Formula 1 season, when it's getting that close, any little thing, Martin, is going to be a bit of a distraction.
I wonder if the dash is still set up for the number of laps in the Grand Prix last year. No, seriously.
That's possible.
Yeah, because we're 3 laps longer, aren't we? Because of the track shorter this year. Well, maybe there's a software glitch in there, something that hasn't been changed.
Well, when you check, double check and triple check everything as engineers and mechanics going into a race, that might be the one little thing that slips by while you're concentrating on everything else. Good spot if it's true.
So Verstappen just took a second out of the lead there, but it's still a dozen seconds. And Lewis then has cleared 3 of the 4. He's got Alonso coming up next. And Verstappen has cleared both Aston Martins as well. Then, of course, he has to get through Leclerc, Ricciardo, Ocon and Alonso.
Fans, well, I was going to say watching, but at some stages, when you're that closely invested in one way or the other, it's very, very difficult to watch.
So how many laps?
11 remaining, gap to Verstappen 12.3.
How's it, Clive? I'm down to 12 already.
It's just that back marker traffic, Lewis. He's going to have to get through it too.
Hamilton then making his way through the cars about to be lapped. Verstappen will have to do that himself very soon as well. Christian Horner on that Red Bull pit wall. I don't know if you're struggling to watch this or not, Christian, but if you were tense at the start, it's probably getting even more tense now with 10 laps to go.
Yeah, you know, the pace of the Mercedes is just too strong today, so Max is driving his heart out there, but we're going to need a miracle in these last 10 laps to turn it around. So he'll give it everything, but you know, the clock's ticking.
Nothing you can do now, I guess. It's Max's right foot. It's all that's left, isn't it? He's gained 2 seconds in the last 2 laps, but as you say, he had too much to do.
He's got 4 cars to go through. I mean, he needs some luck from the racing gods, I think, these last 10 laps, but you know, we're going to give it everything as we have done all year, as Max has done all year, and he'll drive his heart out these last 10 laps, you can guarantee that.
Would this been a different race for you if Lewis Hamilton had to have given the place back at turn 6 on that opening lap, or do you think come the final reckoning it wouldn't have made much difference?
Well, it gives you more options. You have track position, you've got clean air, so yeah, we're disappointed in that decision, but you know, it is what it is, and
possibly
we're
low
just getting on with it.
for Norris. Possibly
I think,
low puncture for Norris.
They've just had a quicker car when you look at the pace that they've got on these worn tyres, but still 10 laps to go.
Thanks ever so much, Christian. Lando Norris pits, slow puncture for Lando Norris, and that forced him into the pits, and well, that just compounds what has been a bit of a disappointing night in terms of technical difficulties. He was doing a super job, but he's been relegated now down to 8th. Bottas up into 5th place, Sonoda 6th, Gasly 7th. Ted, down to you.
Oh, Lando Norris. Yeah, it was just if he does. Team radio.
And we've seen Norris with a front left puncture, so just be careful on the curbs.
That's the curbs, that's the thing. You see, Lando's problems were sorted from early on. He was just being told on the radio to be careful about deployment, but that's just an energy recovery, a hybrid system, a bit of advice from his engineers. But these curbs, Pirelli were worried about them coming here because they're aggressive, like they're aggressive in Qatar, where we saw some front left punctures. So has this Grand Prix got a further tyre twist in it, Crofty? Surely not.
Just as Christian Horner was saying, we need a miracle to win the race from here. They angle grinded down some of the curves on Thursday nights, Friday night I should say, just to make them a little less aggressive, but sadly for Lando Norris, he's got a slow puncture.
So we think the problem curbs maybe just turn 15, turn 16.
So turns 15 and 16, the final 2 corners on the track, taken at about 160 miles an hour, and then taken, the final corner around about 93 miles an hour.
Of course, we saw this in Qatar, didn't we? In terms of tyres not enjoying consistent pounding. In fact, Valtteri Bottas was the first one to find out, unfortunately for him.
This is Lando Norris, currently down in 9th place. And down in 9th place because on the fresher set of the medium compound tyre, he's managed to get past Esteban Ocon. Lando Norris, who races all the way to the line, especially here in Abu Dhabi after a few seasons ago. He had a stellar last lap in his Grand Prix debut season. Came home to finish in 8th place, still racing to the line now.
Normal service resumed now then for Lewis Hamilton, straight back into the 126s. Now he's cleared the traffic. And now that Norris is pitted, that means there are 5 cars for Verstappen to get through in that DRS train, as we call it.
Yeah, Verstappen, though, will get DRS to help him lap those cars. And that might just help him shave off a couple of seconds here or there, but he needs a little bit more than that. As it stands, 394.5 points for Lewis Hamilton. He will become world champion. Max Verstappen will have led more laps than any other driver during the course of this season, but it won't be enough to give him that dream of a first ever Formula One World Championship. We've said it all season long, Martin, and especially this weekend though. Whoever is champion, both drivers have put in a champion performance all season long.
Without doubt. But if you look back, there's all those little tormenting moments, aren't there? Your Max got wiped out, didn't he, when Valtteri Bottas was playing billiards in Hungary and the tyre in Baku, and Lewis, you know, went off in Baku then and lost some points, and just all those little twists and turns that we can look back and that would have made the difference. But you win a championship over a season, not over a race, as Leclerc gets out of the way and lets Max Verstappen through. But at the end of the day, Mercedes and Hamilton came on so strongly at the end of the season, as they have done again tonight. And Lewis's pace and with tyres that have been on since lap 14 is really quite sensational now, and just keeping anything at bay.
Talk more Mercedes in a moment. Verstappen, when he goes to wherever he goes to lie down and relax at the end of this season, will he think back to Silverstone? Will he think that if I'd have just given up the fight that day to win the overall battle, I'd be world champion now? Or will that not enter his mind?
I've asked him that a couple of times on camera, and he's like, no, I would. In fact, he actually rejoined on that when I asked him that in Brazil. He said, no, I'd do the same thing again. My feeling is, I don't know why you do the same thing again, because he had a 33-point lead that morning and ended up, sadly for Max, in hospital that day.
Lando Norris on and up to 8th place after a late pit stop caused by that slow puncture. He's charging through the field. His teammate Daniel Ricciardo moves out of the way, and Max Verstappen then quickly gets back onto the racing line because he wants to try and keep Charles Leclerc at bay, but both Ricciardo and Leclerc out of the points at the moment. Mercedes on course to be Constructors' champions for a 8th record-breaking 8th consecutive time, and in a season where the regulations changed ever so slightly, but at their detriment at the start of this season, it's once again a great recovery, because they felt they've been hampered coming into this season by those slight regulation changes.
Well, that feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? But yes, Mercedes had an awful pre-season test, didn't they? We thought they would be in terrible trouble come the first race.
Oh no! Nicholas Latifi has crashed, and I think that is at turn 14, where we saw Kimi Räikkönen crash in practice. It is at turn 14, and yes, that will be a safety car, because marshals are going to need to recover that Williams and to work on it, and this now completely changes the context of this race if they can clear the Williams in time and we can have a couple of laps racing to the checkered flag.
There's bound to be a couple, and of course that's where Max Verstappen's much fresher tyres will fire up and give him the confidence on any kind of restart. It depends how there will be, I'm pretty sure, on lap 52, obviously because of the slow pace with 5 to go, that they'll probably have a lap or two, as long as they get if they get a vehicle on there and get that out of the way.
And coming into the pits, Max Verstappen. Hamilton stays out. Verstappen coming into the pits, and I would imagine there's a set of soft tyres waiting for him to go onto that Red Bull car. Yes, it is.
Box. Negative.
Right, so if there is a restart, Verstappen now has fresh soft tyres. Lewis has heavily used hard compound tyres. They will let any lap runners through on the safety car restart, and he will presumably end up, well, they had nothing to lose. Once again, Red Bull had nothing to lose there.
They have nothing to lose. Hamilton is a long way clear as Perez also pits, as we can see, and there's quite a few coming into the pits. Hamilton's a long way clear on the track, but I rather get the feeling by the time he comes around to the main straight, he's not going to be able to pit and stay ahead of Max Verstappen. That chance wasn't there, or has gone by for Mercedes.
Verstappen tucked up behind Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin there.
But he won't be on the restart.
Wow.
So look, we're on lap 54 of 58 here. They've got to clear that debris away, and the fire extinguishers have obviously gone off because the brakes, I'm sure, were getting very, very hot. But they've also got to let the lapped cars unlap themselves. Just at the back of my mind, I wonder if we're going to get any racing laps in this race. Wait and see. This is what happened to Nicholas Latifi. He was scrapping away with Mick Schumacher.
But it's not the corner he crashed on, is it?
That was earlier on, I think, in the skirmish with Schumacher. They barged wheels, went off the track, would have picked up a bit of dust and debris on his tyres, and then the rear just lets go.
Probably dirty tyres from being offline there. Will we get any more racing laps or not? What jeopardy at the end of this Grand Prix, the end of this World Championship. Will there be any more racing laps? If there are, then Verstappen has got the tyres to really do something with them. Will they let the lap runners through?
Well, they always do let the lap runners through, and in between Hamilton and Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Ocon, Leclerc and Vettel.
Yes, but if they do that, it extends the safety car period.
But that's what they always do, take the lap runners out of the way so they're not interfering in play.
What's the situation behind
So the situation is, Verstappen has pitted. He had a free pit stop. We would have lost track position to him. 4 laps remaining when you cross the line. So this field has to bunch, and then they have to send lap cars through. So it may not restart.
Is he right behind me?
He will be, once they've sorted out all the order. This is going to take a while to sort out.
It might be one.
With new tyres.
Copy Lewis. We would have lost track position if we had pitted.
And that was the big key here. Mercedes, for the second time, keeping Lewis Hamilton out, whilst Max Verstappen pitted. Red Bull had nothing to lose. Hamilton potentially losing track position. And in this case, if we don't go racing again because you can't overtake under the safety car, he would have lost the World Championship.
Is there a vehicle pulling the Williams out of the way or not yet?
Can't see it at the moment. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, have a load of other people pitting. Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, Daniel Ricciardo. We've had Lance Stroll as well into the pits. I'll give you those orders as they shake out. But yeah, it was just bad luck. I mean, you saw the Mercedes mechanics just hanging around outside the pits looking at whether they had the order to come in. But Hamilton was so close to the pit entrance that it does seem that the engineer's right there. Whatever they would have done, they would have lost track position.
The safety car's not going full gas down the straight.
Copy Lewis, understood.
His tyres are cooling. He needs more pace, more heat into those tyres.
This is awful for Lewis then with those hard compound, heavily used tyres. So there's the shunt then that caused the safety. There has to be a safety car there. And but will they let the lap runners through? I don't think it's absolutely mandatory, but that's normally on a wet day that they don't. And if so, how long will they wait for those lap cars to get out of the way? If they wait for them to catch the pack up, which they don't have to do, then I don't think we'll get a racing lap. If they let them through, we could get one racing lap.
3 laps to go. Nicholas Latifi is seemingly okay after that contact with the barriers, around about 90 miles an hour. But he would have taken a whack, and it's good to see that he's okay. Sergio Perez coming into the pits again.
So Max,
I think they're retiring the car here. Perez into the pits for the 4th time. I didn't understand why, but I think they are retiring the car, and yes, they're not going to be working on it, and that is the end of Sergio Perez's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Checo, we need to retire the car. We need to retire the car. Box.
And for the
really? Yeah, box.
And lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake.
It's not mandatory in the regulations, which leaves Verstappen with a lot of work to do then.
So Mercedes will be Constructors' champions at the end of this race, as it stands at the moment, assuming that Hamilton and Bottas finish this race. The Drivers' Championship, though, is very much up for grabs. The lapped cars won't be allowed to overtake, which means that there are plenty of cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen for Verstappen to fight his way through. Norris, Alonso, and also Ocon and Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel.
None of which are for position, of course.
No.
They're obliged to get out of the way, but Lewis will be long down the road.
That I suppose is the compromise that race control have made here, by giving the best possible chance for racing to the finish rather than finishing behind the safety car. They've decided the lap cars will stay where they are.
Cancel that. Lap cars will not be allowed to overtake.
Yeah, of course. Typical decision.
It's classic.
I'm not surprised.
Look, I'll try and look at this objectively. We should get one lap of racing here. If we allowed the lap cars to overtake, we'd have no laps of racing to the checkered flag. So what do Red Bull want? And Max Verstappen and Gianpiero Lambiase as race engineer, do they want the chance, or do they want to finish behind the safety car with no overtaking? Because I think that is the decision that has come from race control. And personally, this is the decision that gives them the best chance if they want it.
Yeah, I mean, the regulation, as I said, they may allow the lap cars through. It's not mandatory, as I pointed out, but as you point out, Crofty, there'd be no racing laps if they let the lap cars through, because I think the safety car will come in at the end of this lap, and there will be one racing lap.
They'll all get blue flags, I would imagine.
Christian and Michael.
Yes, go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, why aren't we getting these lap cars out of the way?
Just give me, because Christian, just give me a second. Okay, my big one is to get this incident clear.
You only need one racing lap.
Well, I assume Christian's talking about then, getting the lap cars out of the way, not clearing the incidents away.
Yeah, I mean, all of the cars in front of Max will get blue flags and are duty bound to get out of the way, but they're all in a reasonable fight themselves, aren't they?
Well, so here we go. Normally, you'd see the race leader backing up the pack a little bit when the safety car goes. I would imagine on this occasion, if we do get a lap, Martin, Hamilton will want to be disappearing off into the distance as fast as he can. Yeah,
I don't see any way Verstappen can do anything with that, but indeed, is the safety car coming in this lap? We think it could do. Is there any more debris to clear up? But we're halfway round already.
Race control are now saying lapped cars to overtake the safety car. So Norris and Alonso and Ocon and Leclerc and Vettel to
and
overtake it.
And it's ending. Wow.
Michael.
So there's confusion, but the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. So those back markers allowed to overtake the safety car, and that has now left Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen.
Michael, this isn't right.
It has left Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen side by side. Hamilton will be ahead. Verstappen is absolutely desperate to get on with this on that soft compound tyre. We're going to have one lap of racing to decide the championship in 2021. Hamilton has the advantage. Verstappen has the faster, fresher tyres. And we have got 3.2 miles of racing action all the way to the checkered flag as the crowd roar the drivers on to the final lap of this race, and Verstappen sets after Hamilton. Is it going to be a first World Championship for Verstappen? Is it going to be an 8th World Championship for Lewis Hamilton? Where can Verstappen try and get past Hamilton? First overtaking zone is normally down into turn 5. Is Verstappen far enough back? He's going to make the lunge down the inside. Hamilton sees him coming. It's a late lunge by Verstappen, who takes the lead of the race. Verstappen now snatches the championship trophy from Lewis Hamilton, who's trying to fight back.
No DRS for 2 laps, so Lewis Hamilton will not get the rear wing open. Now he's going to go down the outside. If Verstappen keeps it tight and neat, but he hasn't, he's gone a little bit wide.
This race that started with controversy is ending with controversy.
No, Mikey, that was so not right.
Here comes Lewis Hamilton though, down the back straight. He's got a slipstream. He almost touches Verstappen. They almost make contact into turn 9. Verstappen stays ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Of all the drama, of all the controversy, of all the magic moments in Formula 1 in 2021, it comes down to this. And at this moment, it looks like it's going to go the way of Max Verstappen. Mercedes not happy. Red Bull will be delighted. They have shared a brilliant championship battle, but the championship can only be won by one, and it's going Dutch in 2021. Max Verstappen, for the first time ever, is champion of the world. finishes in second place after leading for so long. But these last moments are going to be talked about, and this might not be the end of the matter, because Mercedes are furious as much as the Dutch fans think it's fabulous.
Oh my God! Yes! Oh my God! Yes! Yes! Oh my God!
You couldn't make it up, could you? There's going to be so much acrimony going forward now about that procedure at the end. Red Bull played every card they could because they hadn't got enough speed, they hadn't got track position, they played it really smart. Mercedes played it cautious out front, but to release the lap cars and end the safety car and give us one racing lap, wow, how quickly did that turn around? What was Christian Horner saying to us? The racing gods need to shine down on us. They certainly did.
We need a miracle, said Christian Horner. The miracle arrived. Nicholas Latifi crashed, the safety car came out, the lapped cars were allowed to get out of the way, Verstappen pitted for fresher tyres, and in the course of one racing lap, took the lead and kept it.
Max Verstappen, you are the world champion! The world champion!
Mate, you absolutely deserve it! You absolutely deserve it! You've had no luck! Not the rub of the green! Recharge on, please. Recharge on.
Max, we are so proud of you.
Oh my God, guys. I love you so much.
You have driven like a champion all year. You deserve that. We needed a bit of luck. You got it. You made it happen. And we love you. We absolutely love you.
I think a bit of luck, lifetime supply of luck, might just have come Red Bull and Max Verstappen's way. Ted Kravitz down in the pit lane. Well, emotion after emotion after emotion.
It's pandemonium. Christian Horner is crying his eyes out. Jos Verstappen is already wearing a Max Verstappen World Champion t-shirt, and at the Mercedes garage, they are shell-shocked. Toto Wolff has just dropped his head. He can't believe it. He's talking to Susie Wolff, his wife. They're all asking each other what is going on. They're shaking their heads. They are in disbelief.
2 seconds, Ted.
This is unbelievable, guys. Can we do this for another 10, 50 years together?
Right, honestly.
They're in disbelief at Mercedes. Horner has gone up to the Mercedes pit wall to shake hands with anyone he can find. He's getting a handshake, but it's not very warm. Mercedes absolutely have no idea what has just gone on. They are befuddled, the most befuddlement you can ever see, whereas it is all going off. That is a release of emotion, a release of pressure. They can't believe, is it luck? Is it judgment? Is it the F getting the rub of the green? But they are absolutely shell-shocked at Mercedes, and they are in pieces, in tears of joy at Red Bull Racing.
Remember in 1989 when Arsenal went to Anfield needing a 2-0 win to win the title, and in the stoppage time Michael Thomas burst through on goal and it was all up for grabs now. And it wasn't Michael Thomas tonight, it might have been Michael Massey, but it was definitely Max Verstappen who burst through to take that win. And I might need to sit down for quite a while here, Martin Brundle, to just try and compute what has happened in the last 5 minutes, and he might need to sit down for the whole winter because I'm not sure it's going to sink in for a while.
What happened is Red Bull played a smart hand using the safety car facilities, and then they ended up on far better tyres, and Max lunged beautifully into turn 5, managed to hang on through the rest of it. No DRS available for 2 laps after a safety car, so it's a straight fight down the...
Oh, I'm just speechless, Lewis. Absolutely speechless.
Bono is speechless. I'm not sure if Lewis Hamilton is talking to him or not. For a moment, and a brief moment, Hamilton felt that the crown was coming his way. Mercedes thought that the double world championship was coming their way. Those Dutch fans had pretty much given up hope. But in live sport, you never ever give up hope. You never leave before the end, because anything can happen. And here in Abu Dhabi, it did tonight. Mercedes are Constructors' champions for a record-breaking 8th consecutive time, but it is not the double championship they so wanted. Verstappen beats Hamilton to the Drivers' Championship. He ends the run, doesn't he, of British and German champions in Formula One. Not since Kimi Raikkonen in 2007 have we had a non-Brit or German champion. There's Christian Horner to embrace his man in Parc Fermé, and everyone wants to join in the celebrations except those in the Mercedes garage.
And Carlos Sainz finished third for Ferrari, is also on the podium. Yuki Tsunoda fourth, so fourth and fifth for AlphaTauri. Wow.
Yeah. Perez pitted, retired from the race. Sainz said, thank you, I'll have a podium. Down to you, Ted.
Just asking around, I mean, the feeling at Mercedes seems to be, well, hang on, there seems to be an abuse of the rules here. The rules have not been followed. Why were only 5 cars allowed to unlap themselves and then the race restarted? That's the point, isn't it? So Mercedes are thinking, well, hang on, the process was not followed here. It was not followed properly the way it always has been under safety cars, with lap cars being allowed to unlap themselves. Only 5 were, not the rest of them. And then the race was restarted, and they feel that's what's not fair.
All I can assume is that Michael Massey, the race director, wanted to give this race every chance to end as a race. Not behind the safety car. We've had races end behind the safety car before. We've had championships won behind the safety car before. But he wanted to ensure that we got at least 1 lap of racing. And by allowing those lapped cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen to unlap themselves, that was the best chance for it to happen. But at one stage, lapped cars weren't overtaking and unlapping themselves, and then a few moments later they were. Toto Wolff is absolutely furious and is now walking out of the back of the garage, and nobody, I think, wants to say a word to the Mercedes team principal. We'll be getting reaction from Mercedes as soon as he's able to talk.
Oh, we will be.
I'm sure they will have a lot to say. I'm sure Red Bull will have a lot to say and celebrate. Sergio Perez, who did such a sterling job for his teammate tonight, is down there to join in the celebration. Sebastian Vettel, who shared some great rivalry with Lewis Hamilton over the years, comes over, as does Mick Schumacher, to say sorry that it worked out the way it did for you. Max Verstappen is the 2021 World Championship on the track, and Lando Norris has smiles for him. Well, the dream is realised. He said it early on, I want to be world champion, and it's happened for him. But honestly, it had to happen in circumstances like this, Martin, because anything else wouldn't have been befitting of the season that we've just had.
Oh, the best season I've ever commentated on in a quarter of a century, and the wildest finale. Max Verstappen said to us in interviews, hey, it won't change my life, I'll be world champion one day. But his tears and his emotion show you that underneath it's a different story. And wow, well, there'll be a lot of controversy about that run into the final lap, safety car not allowing the lap runners through, allowing some of them through, and then ending all in one go. And suddenly you had Lewis on hard tyres, have been on since lap 14, and Max on a set of fresh soft tyres. Red Bull playing their opportunities there brilliantly, it must be said. And, well, I don't think Lewis could have done anything about that at all.
Jenson Button is down in Parc Fermé as Lewis Hamilton comes to embrace Max Verstappen and say well done at the end of the season. Let's hear from the new champion.
Max Verstappen, you are a Formula One world champion.
It's unbelievable. I mean, throughout the whole race I kept fighting, and then of course that opportunity in the last lap, it's incredible. I'm still having a cramp, but it's insane. It's insane. I mean, I don't know what to say. These guys here of my team, and of course Honda as well, they deserve it. I love them so much.